Hope all the fathers had a great Father's Day on the weekend. I sure did, and so blessed to have 4 wonderful children and 6 great grandkids. So wonderful grandkids. I can't say great grandkids because I'm not that old for sure. Are you ready, Adam?
I'm trying.
You're doing well, Adam.
Keep going, Matt. Just keep going.
There we go, Adam. Adam was on time today, so that was a good start to the day.
It's on the video now, too.
And the new year. Just a few thoughts, and then I'll answer your questions. We just wanted to catch up because it's been a while since we had our visit after spring practice. This team is very close. It's an older team. It's a more mature team. They've had their ups and downs, but the younger guys have been to the Orange Bowl, had a poor season by our estimation last year, and then this year we won the Coastal and had a chance to end with 12 or 13 wins and didn't do it. So they also understand what could have been. So it's a lot of hope for them moving forward because they can see that we didn't finish well. Oregon was a really good team. We were shorthanded and came down to 19 seconds in that game. So that's how close we are to getting where we want to go. But when you don't do it, it's a motivator. Some cases, falling short is more of a motivator than if we had won 13 games or gone to the playoffs. And we sure have a chip on our shoulder. There's an edge out there about people calling us soft and needing more toughness. So I like what I see when I'm talking to these guys and watching them work out. You start looking at the opening part of the schedule for sure. Be probably the toughest opening 4 games that I've ever been involved with South Carolina and Charlotte, then App State here, and then Minnesota here, and then at Pitt. And that's a motivator for this team as well, because they know that we're going to have to be physical in those first 4 games. They know we're going to have to be in tremendous shape. It's going to be hot. There'll be a lot of running in the sun with very good physical teams, all of which will run the ball and run the ball well against us, and that's been one of our nemesis. So we got to be ready to play, and that motivates these guys even more for summer workouts. It's also a big lift for our fans. We need great fan support in Charlotte because South Carolina's coming off of a tremendous finish. They beat Tennessee, they beat Clemson, and then played Notre Dame down to the last play. So they've got a lot of momentum. We didn't finish like we wanted to, and they finished as good as they finished in many, many years. So they'll have a lot of momentum going into that ball game. But we're going to need our fans to be with us those first 3 games for sure. When we go to Charlotte, we want to fill it up in Bank of America Stadium and then come back and be packed and be rowdy for App State and for Minnesota, because those should be tremendous ball games. Spring practice recap. Positive takeaway is just what I said. It's a business-like team. We didn't have up and down practices. They were ready to practice every day. They practiced hard. When you start looking at the goals, we've talked about the goals. They haven't really changed around here for 4 years and going on 5. And what I've talked a lot to the staff about this spring is having goals is important, but committing to those goals and accomplishing those goals is more important. And we haven't done that. We haven't run the ball well for the last 2 years. We haven't stopped the run well for the last 2 years. We've got to do those things to just fundamental parts of being a good football team before we can make progress. So let's quit talking about the goals unless we've committed to them, but we haven't accomplished them. And we need to accomplish those goals at this point for sure. And that's really, really important. We also have talked about being too deep. Now we need to do that. The transfer portal has even more reason for everybody to be too deep, because you don't want your guys on the second team to leave. You need them to stay because that's your future. And most of the time it's the guys that aren't playing enough that leave. So I've told our coaches, look and see if your guy was in the portal, would you want him back? And if so, then trust him and play him and put him out there and let it go. And we also had some really bad injuries, especially in our defensive line at the mid to latter part of the season, and that really hurt us. So we've got to have guys ready to step up when some other people get hurt. And if you're playing enough people, a guy doesn't get so tired that he gets hurt late in the season because he's more tired. I also really like this staff. This staff's getting along better camaraderie than any staff that we've had since we've been here. And you take the Ted Monachino's and the Clyde Christensens, and they've had a tremendous impact off the field. They can talk to our coaches and they can evaluate the practice video and tell them what they see, good or concerns. And you take two guys that won Super Bowls, that's pretty powerful. And the same with Freddie Kitchens. He's been a tremendous addition to our staff. Jason Jones has worked with Charlton Warren before at Indiana, so they're on the same page. So the staff continuity has been really, really good, and now we've got to take all that knowledge and we've got to transfer it to the field. And that's very, very important moving forward. A lot of newcomers came in on Monday. Ty Adams, Caleb Cost, Chris Culliver, Aiden Duncanson, Caleb LaValle, Jordan Louis, Trey Miller, Joel Starlings, all came in last Monday. Antavia Stick Lane, the grad transfer from Georgia State, came in on Tuesday, and he's looked really, really good in the off-season program. Rodney Laura and Julian Randolph will come in today. So they'll be here at noon today, and that'll be the end of our scholarship group.
Could you read that again, please?
Yes, which ones? The last ones
just
or all
the
of them?
whole part, yeah.
Okay. Ty Adams,
Okay.
Caleb Cost, Chris Culliver, Aiden Duncanson, Caleb LaValle, it's Val, Jordan Louis, Trey Miller, and Joel Starlings, and it's Joel, got here on Monday.
That was Monday of last week.
Yes,
It wasn't yesterday.
a week ago.
Yeah.
Monday last week, and Chris came in Friday.
And Chris came in Friday because he had some family stuff he had to deal with.
Gotcha.
And we work them separate than we do the older guys until we make sure they're safe and in condition. So they will actually be working as a group. And then Ontavia Stick Lane, you like a safety named Stick, there's a reason.
That's a new one.
That's a new one. He came in on Tuesday, and he's been working out with the older guys and looks really good. And then today, I'll have lunch as soon as we leave here with Rodney Laura and Julian Randolph. And that should be the end of our scholarship guys that are coming in for the summer. And Julian and Rodney, they all come in when they get finished with school. And all the schools are different. Their times for graduation are different. And that's why it is staggered. Summer workout goals, it's again to prepare for that first 4 games, to have more toughness, to stop the run, to be in great shape, to try to develop too deep. All of those things are things that are important. Leadership is so important year round, but it's even more important in the summer because we can't be out there. They have player-led practices. They've got to coach the guys, and they know who's out too late, and they know who's not eating properly, and they know somebody's got bad habits. So Kevin Donnelly was hired for the Coleman Game Plan for Success, and Jim Coleman and his family paid for that position. And that position is to really instill leadership in your team. So they bring in guest speakers every week. They have Steve Smith came and talked to the leadership committee at Kevin's house for dinner. So you've got speakers all summer, and they talk to them about leadership, and they answer questions to the leadership committee. And then the leadership committee takes it back to the team. Kevin also helps them get internships, which will really help them prepare for life after football. He is also involved in helping them understand how to handle their money, because they have more money now with cost of attendance and the academic stipend and NIL. So we're trying to teach them how to use that money and try to save that money and help their family. So leadership over the summer, year-round is really important, but you have more time in the summer, and it's really, really an important part of their progress. Recruiting update, I'm really excited where this class is and they're coming together. People talk about, it's funny that boosters will tell me, I don't like him. Well, maybe you've seen him on 3 clips of video. We've got 12 people that watch every player. And when you think the power of a Ted Monachino and a Clyde Christensen watching guys, the Daryl Moody's got 19 years of evaluation of players as a pro scout. So you start looking at those guys, plus our recruiting staff, plus the entire side of the ball that is recruiting the player for defense. There's 12 evaluations that are written up separately before it ever comes to me. And if they feel like I need to see him because they think he's a scholarship player, then Pat Suddas brings me the video and I write up what I see. And then I take the 12 evals and I go back and look at every one of them, and then we meet as a staff and decide who we should offer. Core GPA is a huge part of that. I like to start with 3.0 and above. And that's really important. I took 30 years at Texas. Sally and I sat down and looked at every player when we got out of coaching that we had recruited and said, what separates people more than anything? And obviously there has to be a certain level of ability, and if you're the captain it helps and all those things. But the fact that you had a 3.0 or above in your core GPA showed accountability. It showed that you cared about yourself. It showed that you cared about others, and it was a very, very strong point for us. So with NIL and the changes that it's made in the recruiting landscape, we have to do a better job of evaluating, number one, who fits here than ever before. Because if they're going to take money before they come here, or even if they commit to us and they would take illegal money in December, we shouldn't sign them. Or we shouldn't commit them, because that's just a waste of our time. If they're going to be a great player when they get here and they're going to take money to leave, why bring them in? You're developing somebody and you're losing them after a year or 2 years. So it's really, really important that we find the proper people academically that fit our school, the proper families that want to be here, and families that are going to go by the rules. And I'm so proud. We have a great NIL program. I'm for NIL, so I don't want it to sound like it's a negative. But people who cheated before NIL are still cheating. And if somebody's going to take money, and if you offer someone money before they sign with you, it's an inducement like it was 2 to 3 years ago. You cannot do that. You can simply tell them that the running back, the starting running back on our team is making this much money. So there's an opportunity for you to make that money. You can't give them the money, and people are just saying, I will give you this amount of money to sign, and we're going to go by the rules here. So that's not happening. But I'm really, really proud of the young guys that are committing with us and the families, that they're trusting us, that there is an NIL program within the rules, that they can earn their money when they come here, but we're not going to illegally give them money before they come. And we have to ask them before we bring them in, are you going to take money? If you are, then don't come in. That's just who we are. But we've got a huge weekend this weekend. We've got 13 guys coming in. We've got a lot of momentum. I think we've got 17 commitments now, something like that. I don't know what it is. But I'm really excited about the weekend, and we're going to finish with a lot of momentum, and it's going to be good. People wonder sometimes why you don't take a guy. It may be he's not interested. It may be that his grades aren't such that we feel like he can be a guy that should be here. It may be that he's taking NIL money illegally. So there's a lot of different reasons in recruiting, and we never talk about the individual recruits publicly. We can't, number one, but we wouldn't, because that's private information, and we don't want to embarrass some of them. A few dates for you, and then I'll answer some questions. ACC kickoff for us is July 27th. And we'll have 3 players going down. Those have not been released yet by the ACC office. Our players are home right now between first and second sessions of summer school, but the second session of summer school ends July the 27th, and then we report on August the 1st. And our first practice will be August the 2nd. The first 3 practices are in shorts. The 4th and 5th practice are in what we would call shells or uppers. It's just shoulder pads and shorts. And then the 6th practice can be in full gear. And we'll get you a full schedule to come. The last thing I'd like to mention, it's interesting, then just about every recruit that comes in asks me if I'm going to quit, because they said all the coaches recruiting against us say you're quitting. And I said, well, I haven't talked to any of them. And there were a number of them last year that said I was quitting that got fired. So they probably ought to worry more about their jobs than mine. And then I thought it's probably the best compliment I could ever have that they want me to quit. So I want to thank them. So I'm publicly thanking all of you all who are saying I'm going to quit because it's a great compliment. I'm in better shape than I've been in 20 years. I'm working harder than I've been in 20 years. I'm really excited about where this program is and where it can go. And I sure wouldn't be sitting in on Sunday afternoon talking to an unofficial visit of a guy from the class of 26 if I was planning on quitting. So, no, I'm not planning on quitting. Questions?
You said that you talked a lot last year about how much you liked the demeanor of the team in the offseason. You kind of touched on that at the beginning here. Is it a similar demeanor to this team that you saw a year ago, different in any way?
It is very similar, except they're older. Most of them are back. And last year they had the chip on their shoulder. They were coming off 6 wins in an awful bowl game against South Carolina. So hey, keep your mouth shut and play, because we didn't deserve to be talking about anything. And nobody gave them any credit for anything. And then they're 9-1, so they know what's possible, but we didn't finish right. And I mean, we didn't finish right with 2 really good teams and 2 other teams that were a lot like us that we didn't finish in the end. So now I think they're older. They see what's the possibility. They see what's out there. A guy like Seth Gray would probably be a 2nd round draft choice, and he decides to come back because he's so excited about the season. So that's what I see. This is the same attitude we had last year with more confidence and more maturity. And still has a chip on the shoulder because we didn't finish right. Now, I'd rather finish right and not have the chip on the shoulder for that reason. I'd rather create a chip on the shoulder for another reason, but that didn't happen. So, yes.
So I was going to ask, what was kind of your takeaway from the ACC meetings? You know, everyone gets all excited about those every year. And Carolina was mentioned among the Magnificent Seven. And revenue distribution model came out. What were kind of some of your takeaways from all that?
I thought the meetings were good. All the head coaches sitting there together, and you bring in the commissioner, and you bring in the officials. The new supervisor of officials was there and talked about the way he's going to evaluate officiating and the changes and what would happen. And that's always interesting because everybody in there is mad at officiating every year without question. And then the commissioner talks about the future of the program. And obviously, we're all sitting there and people start talking about Magnificent Seven. I'd never heard that until I was sitting in a meeting. I'm sitting next to Mike Elko. When it happened, he kind of said, "Is that you?" I said, "No, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I'm trying to win games." So I think the college football is crazier right now than it's ever been in my lifetime, and I think ever been. When you talk about the transfer portal and where are we going with that? What changes will happen? And then you start talking about NIL and where's that? The NCAA just hired the governor of Massachusetts, so obviously they feel like politically things have to change to get college football back on track. And then you talk about realignment, and every day you're hearing some team pop up and say they're pulling out of a league or they're changing, and the TV agreements. I really, the only thing I got out of the meetings in Florida were that the commissioner's fighting really, really hard to try to get us more money to make our league be able to compete at the highest level. And that's basically all that was said in those meetings.
Mack,
There's a lot of rumors I don't deal with rumors, I deal with facts. And I figure that Bubba will bring me any information that's prevalent. And I have not heard anything about changes at all.
Can the ACC compete at the highest level?
I think so, but everybody, including the commissioner, would like to find more money per school. And I think that's the big question. And he's working really, really hard to try to figure that out.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mack. I mean, beyond that, along with those meetings, what did you pick up as the mood down there? I mean, was it weird at all? Knowing that, you're in a room with these people who, everybody's trying to position themselves, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, did you pick up, is the vibe getting different with this group of schools and administrators and coaches, just with all the uncertainty and the ground shaking all the time?
I'm not around the administrators much. We have one meeting with faculty rep, ADs, and coaches. And very little was said in that meeting. It was more there's so many big things that are out there that coaches want to get their QCs and analysts and volunteers to be able to coach. And there's so much talk about realignment, NIL, transfer portal, that we're missing out on some fundamental things that coaches need to have changed, and changed now. And that's really important. So I felt like in the coaches' room, Adam, there was more talk about what do we need to get fixed, because we all know we have to win.
Right.
And it's not in our wheelhouse to be talking about realignment. And the coaches didn't talk about it. They laughed when the Magnificent Seven thing hit. But that's a lot more important right now to the ADs and the presidents and chancellors long term. I'm worried about South Carolina.
Right.
And I think that's the 6 coaches got fired last year in our league. And it didn't matter. Realignment wasn't an issue to them. So we have to win. So the mood was more officiating. How can we get some really important things, rules changed at a lower level for us than the big picture for them? Because the big picture to me is clouding the things that we need to get, the fundamental things that we need to get done now. And I thought that was the bigger talk than anything else.
Is there any discussion in those meetings about league performance and how you guys can maybe affect perception with scheduling or don't play games at Mack schools, that kind of thing?
They didn't get into don't play schools from certain leagues, but absolutely, for us to get more money, more TV money, we all need to play a tougher schedule to be able to draw interest from the network to pay more money for it. I think we're playing a Big Ten team and an SEC team and a huge game in this state with Appalachian, our first 3 games. So we're doing that. And I do think that that matters to everybody, and to everybody in there was told, you want more money, pick it up. And we've all been told we've got to do a better job of selling our league with football. Some other leagues sell theirs better than we do. So we've got to constantly push football and how important it is. And then also we need to win these out-of-conference games. It matters because it's important to all of us. And that's why it's foolish when ACC schools fight with each other, because we're all trying to make this thing work. And that was a big part of our discussion.
Question about FCS opponents. Obviously, coaches want wins. So generally speaking, you should get a win if you play an FCS team. But there's also the television factor and the appeal and fans buying tickets. There was a time not too long ago when a lot of coaches defended it because they wanted to help those programs get some money and keep them running. But you got to help yourself now. You got to look out for yourself first. So what is the thinking for you, and also what you think the other coaches think about maybe not playing FCS games anymore?
It's a great question and a real problem, because the coach's job is very different from the athletic director's job. Coach has to win or he gets fired. So would he like a lesser opponent? Absolutely. Would he want every advantage? And the thing is, most fans don't remember who you played. You win 10, 12 games, and they say, God, what a year. yeah, they had 3 FCS teams on there. Nobody goes back and counts them. Now, if you get beat by great teams, then nobody counts them either. They just said, man, they were bad. They just won 4 games. So the athletics director's job is to make as much money as he can and make sure he goes by the rules and keep his coaches. The football coach has got to win games within the rules or he's fired. So that's where there are a lot of head coaches and athletic directors that don't get along because they're fighting the two. And I understood at a very young age, because I was an athletics director at Tulane, that we have different jobs. So my job is to do what's best for the football program at the University of North Carolina, 100%. And when I get in strong discussions with Bubba, I've said, you hired me to do what was best for football. So if I'm fighting for football, don't get mad at me. It's my job. It's what you brought me in here to do. I know you've got 27 other sports. That's not my problem. I want the best for all those sports, but my job is to fight for football. And that's where it gets confusing, and Bubba's got a very difficult job trying to fully support 28 sports. At Texas, I think we had 16, 19, we had the minimum, and they were fully funded, but so my job is to win all the games with really nice kids that are all graduating, staying out of trouble, and make enough money for all the other sports. And I understand it. And that's why we need to win, and we need to fill the stands, and we need to make a whole lot of TV money. Football was a savior during COVID for TV money because we didn't have any fans. We might have had to shut down if football hadn't played. And that was such an important time in our athletic program's history that it all worked. But it's one of the things right now across the country, those coaches that are getting fired can't worry about realignment.
Yeah. I can hear some of those discussions right now.
Yeah, no, and very honestly, I'm the older guy in the room, and I love our coaches, and I look at things differently than a guy that's been a first-year head coach that's trying to keep his job. I mean, it's different. They can't worry about all this stuff. They got to eat. And they got problems that they got to get fixed immediately, and that's where there's so much diversity in thoughts, because everybody's got a different issue and really a different plan to accomplish their goals.
Matt, kind of staying on the revenue aspect, the ACC last month put out the thing about the success incentives as far as the postseason goes. Maybe just the way that you kind of view it, or how it was explained to you, what kind of impact do you think that would have on the conference?
You know, I don't want to talk about things I don't know enough about, and I read it like you did. I heard it briefly at the meetings. That's Bubba's area, not mine, so he would be better to answer that. I know that it sounded like the more we win, the more money you get, and I'm trying to win all the games, so I'm in. But I really don't understand the exact process of how all that works. So Bubba would be much better for that than me.
You said they just brought it up briefly at the meetings. It wasn't like a longer discussion about
Yeah,
it.
and in the football meetings, I don't even remember us discussing that, because that's the ADs. That's realignment, that's the ADs. The football coaches were trying to get guys to coach. They were trying to get all their players to come in for preseason. I mean, there were very fundamental things that we wanted that hadn't been done that we all agreed to, and we couldn't figure out why they weren't done. And obviously, we had the head of the AFCA come in, and he talked to us about NIL and transfer portal and where that was going, because that's so important to the coaches. But realignment didn't really make it to our room.
Does that come up for vote again with the NCAA, the quality control coaches, that sort of legislation? Because it didn't pass, right?
Yes. What Pat's told me, or what I heard, is that they're redoing some of the committees, which I think will be very positive, and maybe even separating divisions, which will be very positive, because we're obviously very different in Power 5 than we are FCS. and it's hard to have the same committee vote on all the rules for both of those. And I'm hearing that that will be brought back up in January.
Okay, so you gotta wait at least for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure, just like you, all the other coaches had calls that put against it and they objected to and thought was wrong. In the meetings, how much did you talk to the commissioner and the league about the officiating? What have they told you? What, if any, will change this coming season?
Yeah, the new supervisor, to me, short term, has done a tremendous job. And Al met with us, all of us. And what he's doing is he's hiring basically assistant coaches that are going to coach each position of the officials like I have in our program. So he's going to do it the same way. And then that review process will be talking to us every week about here's what that coach saw and here's how we handle it. And he said we're not going to agree on everything, but we're going to give you the answer of why we called it and how we expect you to teach it to call it. And that's all we want. We want consistency on calls. He came over and spent a full day with us. I think he did with every team. And I said, how are you going to call defensive pass interference? And all of our coaches were sitting there. And I said, we need to know how to teach it because everybody calls it differently. Some people can be really aggressive and it's not called. And you're an NFL guy, so tell us how you're going to call it. So he would stand up and he'd get Andrew up and he'd show, here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. We are not going to call this. We're going to call this if you do this. So that was very, very positive. And I thought the coaches left with a very good feeling that they're going to be all over it. They're going to have great communication with us. And that if the most important thing for us, for our coaches, is that we know what you're going to call and why you're going to call it so we can teach them not to do it.
This is Alberto that came over?
Yes.
It's been a full day with you guys?
Yes. And I think he and two of his, quote, coaches, assistants, who will be coaching the positions of the officials.
With the schedule being what it is at the outset, those first 4 games that you outlined, do you kind of enter into fall camp a little bit more on a sprint, or as opposed to a year ago when you could ease into the schedule a little bit more? Because those first 4 could determine what direction things go.
Yeah.
Certainly with perception, and there are a lot of things that can be attained by guys on the team.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I made the point I made early about it's the toughest schedule I've ever been around. And even the end of the schedule, I didn't like the way it was placed by the conference office. And I said that. Some people whined and I didn't care. But I want our players to know if you're going to be good, you got to play a good schedule. And it's real, it's there. So no excuses. We won't talk about the schedule anymore, but it is what it is. And I've told them every day, when you're running your sprints, you're finishing your drills, that's the fourth quarter of the Minnesota game. It's the fourth quarter of the South Carolina game. So you didn't finish at the end of the year last year. So you're finishing now to win those first 3 games, first 4 games. You're not finishing to get through summer workouts. And that does make a difference because they can see if we opened up with somebody who wasn't good, they'd think, we got a scrimmage, we're okay. We'll play in. I don't have any play in. It's we jump in with both feet to start with.
Those last 2 games, you've talked a lot about that. A lot of people have commented on the things that you said. On the flip side, is there a positive there that if you guys are having a big season, and game number 11, you go down to Death Valley, and Drake is in a position to maybe do something significant, doesn't it kind of work to your advantage in the sense that you can really attain something significant those last 2 weeks?
It does.
If you've positioned yourself.
Yeah. There were a lot of great things we did against Clemson. What was unusual for us, we turned it over 3 times and had a field goal blocked. Defense played a lot better than they had played, and stopped the run better than they had stopped it. NC State comes down to a kick in the end. Oregon comes down to 19 seconds. Georgia Tech, I thought we felt a little arrogance coming out of winning the Coastal, and they had lost some players and didn't have a coach, and we walked in there and got up 17-0 and left the building. And I didn't think we finished, and that's my fault as a coach. NC State, you go back, I think we were 4th and 3 when we kicked the field goal. We had not been a great field goal kicking team. Second guess myself, probably should have gone for the 4th and 3 because we'd made 4th downs all year. Oregon, we were up by 7, 9 minutes left, 4th and 2 at the goal line. I thought we were playing good enough defense. It'd be hard for Oregon to score 10 points in 9 minutes. Well, they beat me by 19 seconds. But if I had to do over, my attitude all year was to go for those 4th downs. So I'm going to go back and be really aggressive. I take responsibility for not being as aggressive against NC State and against Oregon in the end as we had been all year, and I thought that cost us.
Were you not as aggressive in those situations because the offense hadn't been as potent the last few weeks of the season?
Yeah, it was a combination of both. The defense was playing better because Oregon was averaging over 500 yards a game, about 50 points, and they were playing great defense. So I said, look, you go with what you got. Offense had not been as good, and we'd lost our offensive coordinator and our offensive line coach. So Lonnie hadn't called plays as much. So I went with what I thought at the time. As I look back, I can take some responsibility for, obviously it didn't work, so I should have gone for it.
That aggressive nature, is that something you were looking for and found in Chip when you were looking for an offensive coordinator?
Yes. Yeah, the best thing, there's a number of best things about Chip. He grew up in this offense. He was a tremendous head high school coach in this offense, but he runs the ball better than we've run it the last 2 years. And then it all fell together for me because he and Randy Clements have been very close friends, and they've wanted to work together because they meet all the time, and they're on the same page with the running game. So we will have a more aggressive and better running game, and that's what I wanted. And then Chip had 2 pro quarterbacks, so he obviously is a great teacher. And Drake, in a very unusual manner, Drake's going to go to the NFL after 2 years, and that's not much experience. But he's so talented, he can't not go because they're going to pay him too much money. But he needed somebody to help him immediately prepare. Because we forget, I got mad at Drake missing a couple of throws there in the spring game. I look up, he's 10 out of 13. I mean, so our expectations of him are so high. But that's why I thought it was so powerful to have Freddie Kitchens come in here, who's coached #1 draft choice quarterbacks. Clyde Christensen's been a dream. He's coached the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. And he's been an offensive coordinator in college and in the NFL. And he's won 2 Super Bowls. Freddie Kitchens has coached a quarterback in the Super Bowl. And then you start looking at what Chip's accomplished, and he's averaged 33 points a game when he was calling plays as an offensive coordinator, and that's at Arizona State, Southern Miss, and Auburn. He didn't call the plays last year at Central Florida. That was Coach Malzahn. And the other thing that happens with Chip that's so good, he embraces Freddie being here. He embraces Clyde Christensen being in there and asking questions and talking. A lot of people aren't confident enough to want Clyde Christensen sitting in your meeting because of all he's accomplished. And Chip embraces it. He brings it on. And I also felt like we were looking at quarterbacks across the country, and there's more better quarterbacks out there right now than ever before because the quarterback teachers, the 7-on-7s, there's a lot of guys that are really good right now that maybe it wasn't that way 15 years ago. But these guys throw every day, and they're usually playing just one sport. But to sit there and have the ability to have those guys evaluating quarterbacks, nobody else got a room like that evaluating quarterbacks. And I've had some pretty good ones. So when those guys come in and say, Coach, this guy's really good, I'm thinking, I got it.
How do you keep up with the staff, particularly the new guys like Chip and Randy, during the offseason, during this kind of quieter period? Like, how often do you keep up with them and things like that?
We meet about every day. I felt bad last year that we brought prospects in on Father's Day. and the fathers were traveling some. And then I felt like our staff didn't get a day to celebrate Father's Day, because I think we had camps and everything last year. So this year we brought in prospects Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and sent them home. And I let the staff off Sunday for Father's Day, and then I let the staff off yesterday because it was a federal holiday. And I've never ever done that before. But we met this morning already, and we meet every day. So, and I text or talk to all of them every day, because I've told them that in the recruiting world now, when somebody's not coming, somebody is coming, those numbers are so hard with roster management this time of the year to get it all to work out. You cannot take a day off, and now a day off just means you're not in the office. You still got that phone working. So I spent most of my Father's Day with recruits or answering coaches on what we should do.
Matt, throughout the offseason, what has stood out about your conversations with coaches and players?
I think that we're so close. We didn't finish, and we're not happy with the way we finished, but we know what we could have done better to finish, and that's what we've got to do. The whole thing has been, we've got to go from, we're good. We've got a good program. We've won 9 games twice since I left. I mean, so for somebody to be mad at winning 9 games, I mean, they're probably not very realistic. We've won the Coastal twice since they've had a Coastal. So I'm not going to say last year's team didn't have a great year. They had a good year, and we want to have a great year. A great year is winning all the games, and very few people do that, but that's what we came back to do. So are we happy with good? It's better than 2. It's better to win 9 than 2. So we're happier, but we also can see really see the standard that's out there that we want to get to, and we can get there. And when you got a great quarterback, you got a chance to get there. One of our biggest things is to who's the next Sam, who's the next Drake, and everything else is in good place in our program. And Connor really had a good end of spring practice. Tad's working, so but we got to have that next guy to step up, because those guys have been really good.
Coach, how do you manage expectations going into this game versus South Carolina with personnel changes, a lot of eyes on Drake, and trying to build off of last season, but kind of just still take it one game at a time? How do you have your team stay grounded?
Well, we give credit to South Carolina because of the way they finished, and we talk about the things we did well. We were good, but nobody in our room is happy. South Carolina feels good about themselves. Everybody bragging on them, nobody bragging on us, and we did pretty good. So the thing we will do is give Coach Beamer and South Carolina all the credit in the world. Everybody's going to feel like they're going to win the game, and we got that. They deserve that. And I'm happy for him the way they finished, and I wish we had finished that way, and we didn't. So, but it's fun for us because this program now is in the middle. It's in the mix of being really good nationally, and what we've got to do is take the next step, and that's what we're working to do.
You mentioned the maturity that this team currently has, and that you also mentioned these younger players are starting to come in and show up. When you have that staggered entrance of some of these younger players that you're bringing in, how does that boost this team's morale kind of in the dog days of summer training where there's not as much organized workouts as there will be later this summer?
Yeah, it's a good question, because they run so hard, and they're like Olympic athletes. They work every day, and even that they're off this week because they don't have school, they're working out because they can't afford not to, and that's why it's so good now that we finally got some depth, and we've developed some competition, so they can't miss. They've got to do everything right, and we check class every day. We check the fact that they've got tutoring sessions. They've got to go. We check their meals every day. They have to eat every day, and they have to eat the right calories. So we just hired a new nutritionist, and she checks every meal. She and her staff. So those are little things that we feel like we've got to do to get better. And we actually have competition over the summer, and they have their running and weightlifting. They have games that they compete in, but also the things off the field determine whether they win or not. So they draft 4 teams, and then those 4 teams compete all summer, and the team that won the off-season and before spring practice had fewer points than the other team, but the other team lost more points because they didn't do things right. And that's what we said. That's why we lost at the end of the year. We didn't do little things right. So everything we're doing is try to show them what you've got to do to be great. And that's not take any shortcuts. And then we have big brothers. So for every newcomer, he has a big brother that takes him to class and shows him where the library is and shows him how to get around Chapel Hill. And we have an adult mentor and a player big brother for each of our players so they can get adjusted. People think now they can leave and go in the transfer portal after they get here for 3 days. So you got to recruit them after they get on your campus. Yes, ma'am.
You had the unique opportunity of playing against one of your transfers who came in previously a year ago. He had one of his best games, I think, against North Carolina. The 6 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, when you saw this guy in the transfer portal, was that a guy that was almost like a no-brainer as to you wanted to add him to defense?
Yes, it absolutely was. It's funny that he forced 2 fumbles in our game. He had an interception, I think, the year before, and he was all over the field. So what you do is after you're reviewing the video, you don't sit there and say, gosh, we'd like to have him. That's what everybody says. Did I go speak the stick after the game and say, hey, boy, you look good. We're losing a safety. We'd love to have you. No. But when he gets into the portal, we remember him in the game, and we kept talking about he's undersized, but man, the guy's all over the place and just played great. So yes, it does matter, and it's even better that we played against him because we had a full evaluation of him, and he's hungry. He was eating lunch the other day, and he'd just been through working out. And I said, how are you doing? He said, God, I love it, man. I love it. So that's one of the things about bringing guys from Group of 5 or from FCS because they have more advantages here than they would have in their programs, and they really like it, and they're happy to be here.
Excellent.
Going through an off season with a quarterback who's receiving a lot of hype is not anything new for you with the guys you've had over the years. But since it was so recent with Sam just 2 years ago, I remember reading a thing, I think 2 years ago, where it was one of those way too early rankings, and Spencer Rattler and Sam were listed as the top 2 quarterbacks that were going to be drafted the next draft. Didn't turn out that way, obviously. Is there anything from what Sam went through just 2 years ago with the hype leading into the season, the expectations, all that you try to talk to Drake about since Drake is close with Sam? Is there anything just there that you all experienced with Sam that can help Drake, just get ready to deal with what you know is coming when the season starts back up?
Yeah. I'm so proud of Sam. We didn't finish right 2 years ago. He didn't get drafted where he wanted to. And I remember calling him on draft day and saying, I'm sorry, this didn't work out what you thought. And he said, Coach, this is perfect. This is the place I wanted to go. And he said, what's best for me is this is the perfect quarterback situation for me. And he knew more than I did because now he's listed as a starter. And I'm so proud of Sam that he stayed positive. He's got tremendous faith. And he didn't ever take anything negative at all. And that's why he's the starter. And I'm also very proud of him that he has really mentored Drake. They talk about every day, and they play golf together, and they hang out together, and they're having so much fun together that Sam's experience, good and bad, is going to help Drake so much. And for a guy just to have done what he wants to do, I think it's just it's a wealth of knowledge for him coming in. What I have to do with Drake is settle him down because he's so competitive and he's so hard on himself. And he's like me when I say, what happened on the 2 passes you missed in the spring game? He said, my feet, I got to get better with my feet. But it's just, there's never been 2 better people to lead your team. And I'm so excited about Drake's year. He's handled NIL so well. He handled the talk about transferring like an adult with me. I went to Pennsylvania with him for the Freshman of the Year award, the Sean Alexander award, and he was so humble and so nice. And then when he got down, he said, "Did I tell everybody thank you, or did I mess anything up?" And I look out the window the other day, and he's out there with offensive linemen, and they're shooting a video for something because he's worried about the other kids not having as good an NIL situation as quarterbacks do. And then I look up, and he's got a seafood NIL deal for all the receivers. That's just who he is. He's worried about everybody else. And you just have to love that. We're so lucky to have had Sam, and he'll be a Tar Heel forever, and to have Drake now.
Outside of Malachi, do you expect everybody that will be healthy when camp opens? And in particular, Sebastian Cheeks?
Yes, on Sebastian. I think everybody's going to be ready to go.
Everybody is in Malachi.
Yeah, that was the question. Yeah, I think Malachi's out for the year.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that we feel like, as of right now, will not be ready to be full speed on opening day.
Yeah, Andrew, I'll check that,
Okay.
but I think Coach would agree.
Yeah, we actually were going to discuss it this morning. We didn't have the full sheet in there, so, but I think that's it.
Cheeks will be full speed?
Yes.
And with Sebastian, and then Deuce coming along the way he did in the spring, you've got, I know you don't have great depth there, but you've got a little bit more maybe than you had last year.
Yes.
You're still going to have those conversations with Cedric and Power about not getting targeting and stuff like that, right?
Yes, but it's one of the things. I want us to play more than 6 offensive linemen. You've got guys like Zach Rice, and you've got Trey Green, and you've got Diego Pounds. You got a bunch of guys that they need to be playing because they're our next offensive line. So I know I put so much pressure on the coaches to win, but guys are going to play better when you put them in, and they're going to feel like you trust them. And it may be every third series, but we're going to have to put those guys in. And it made me think of it, Andrew, because same thing at linebacker. Amari Campbell stepped up and had a great spring. Now, he's a freshman, but it doesn't matter. Power was a freshman 2 years ago, and we threw him in a lot. And then you've got Caleb that just got here, LaValle. We think he's got a chance to be really good. So you've got you got some guys there, but they're going to have to play, and that's what I told Coach Chiswick and Coach Thigpen. Got to play them. Got to put them in. And if it's every third series, we kind of have a rule too that don't put them in inside the 20s. That's where games are won. But if you're from 20 to 20, put them in, let them play some, because that's the only way we're going to get better. And Sid and Power can't play 900 plus plays again 2 years in a row. That's just not fair to them.
Coach, the new light installations at Keaton, is that something that you've been wanting to do for a while? Just now? Yeah,
that is totally Bubba and Rick Steinberger. They did a great job with it. I've never seen it. I think we're actually going to see it in August and maybe even show the students. I think it'll be really cool. But I thought some of our opponents do it, and I thought it was really cool when I was watching them do it. So I think it'll be an added fun thing for our fans and for our players.
Mack, going back to the depth, I wanted to ask about running back. You guys returning a lot of players there. There were some guys that are, I guess, going to be healthy coming into next season. Just what do you think about the competition in that room, and do you feel there's anyone that's kind of, maybe a potential candidate to kind of get the share of the big share of the carries?
Yeah, we've basically had so many good running backs, and a lot of them have been hurt. So it's been a really weird dynamic in that room. And we've really talked about, we'd like to have a 2+1. We'd like to have 2 running backs that are going to play and one ready to step up if one of them gets hurt. And then the other guys that are talented, maybe find something they can do on special teams or third down back or something. And right now, I would see Elijah Green and Omarion Hampton being the 2 that go out there first, because they were healthy all spring and practiced all spring, and the other guys were banged up some. George was doing really well, and then he sprained his ankle, and he missed the latter part, or most of spring really, but the latter part for sure. And then Caleb Hood's been hurt You know, now he's healthy. He was down to 220. I talked to him Friday at lunch, and so he's in great shape. And all of them have a tremendous attitude. So I like what I see from them. And then you got Jordan Louis coming in. Am I missing somebody?
I think that's it.
You all can
I
tell
don't
me.
think so. You
That's
said
it, that's it.
Yeah.
5 guys counting Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we can't have a little bit of all of them. We've got to have somebody that, if you can put him in the game, our deal has always been, if he takes over the game and he gets hot, leave him in. And if not, play them about 5 plays each until one of them takes over and keep them fresh. And that will help us some.
Mack, you were saying earlier that you were in the best shape you've been in 20 years. We'll take the word on that. How
I'd have to go back to the day I thought it got out of hand.
Okay. I mean, some of those pictures of Bobby Bowden, I mean, how have you gone about trying to do this? Has Hess had you running the stadium steps? Or has this been, is this all about eating right? Are you going to bed early? Like, what has Sally been all over you? How have you gone about this, and how are you feeling?
Well, Sally's bad because she's Italian and she loves to cook. And then she wanted me to eat what she didn't eat, so that wasn't good.
So it's her fault then?
It's partly was her fault. Lack of discipline on my part and her being too nice to her husband. No, a couple of years ago I went to Hess and I said, I want to start working out, I'm going to do this. And then he started telling me what I was going to do, and I said, I'll fire him. I can't do that. So I'm not going to do that. So I said, nope, not going to do that. And then we had a speaker come in the spring, and he said that he told a story about the guy that was in the desert in Arizona, and he fell and caught his arm between some boulders, and he had no phone service. And it's a true story. And he was going to die. He didn't have any food, didn't have any water. It was hot. And he had a knife, and he cut his arm off. And that's the only way he could live. So the guy basically said, if you've got something that's not good in your life, cut it out. Cut it loose. And I thought, I'm sitting here telling these players to be in great shape. I'm sitting here telling them to lose weight or gain weight, and here I am. I let myself get out of control in COVID, and I got way too heavy. So I started fasting, and I don't eat until 11:30 or 12, after trying not to eat after 8 at night. And then I try to eat this much instead of this much of every portion. And I cut out all sugar. And I love can I get in trouble with a sponsorship if I said I love my Diet Peach Snapple? And I was having 6 of them, and they cut me down to 1. So now I take the 1 and I sip it very carefully because I know I've got to use it for the whole day. So I get 1. So, and then I walk every day. And I do feel better, and it's not easy. I feel for people who have to and try. Andrew's done it. It's not an easy thing. And when I'm busy, I'm good. Where I get in trouble is if I'm sitting because I'm a nervous eater, and that's what happened during COVID. I just sat and ate, and I walked every day, so I didn't think about it. But I looked up, and I'd gained, I think, 30 pounds. So it was way too much, too fast. And I've got some more to go. So I've lost 35. And I'm trying to lose another 15. So I'm trying to get that down a little bit more.
When you say you cut out sugar, you also cut out carbs, because there's a lot of carbs in the sugar?
I've tried to cut out anything that's going to add weight. I look at calories on everything, and if I was a snacker. So if I'd see a little bag of peanuts and M&Ms, oh my gosh, now I look and say, 210 calories, not worth it. So I just put it down. So that's what I do. So I'm trying really, really hard.
How long did it take for you to make it routine?
This started probably in January, so I bet probably a month and a half, because I've started fasting a lot, and I never had enough patience to wait. I'd wait a week or 10 days, and I'd say, this isn't working. And I love breakfast. Oh my God. I have to walk around on recruiting weekends and bacon laying out there in the plate, and I have to stay away from it. So it's a nemesis for sure. Anything else? Thank you all. Have a great summer, and we'll probably see you.